I'm thinking of leaving my GF of 3 years, who was assaulted, after I was excluded from her recovery. I realize right up front that I am going to come across as a jerk and I will probably get lots of hate for this, but I'm looking for all points of view. Also, this will be very long because I just don't know what to leave out, and honestly, I need to vent some. Here is the story. A year and a month ago, my GF was raped as she was leaving work. Thankfully, she was not killed. Thankfully, the store where she works had cameras in the parking lot. The footage captured the attack, and the bank across the street recorded the attacker's car on camera. Thanks to this evidence and DNA testing, the police caught him within a day. He did not contest the evidence against him. He agreed to plead guilty to avoid getting the maximum penalty. Due to the presence of aggravating factors, such as the knife, the judge sentenced him to 20 years. With the possibility of early release for good behavior, he could potentially be out in around 10 years. I shared these details to emphasize that the person who attacked her is no longer a danger. I'll make sure to remember this text. She can rest assured that he won't come back for her for at least 10 years. This was an incredibly traumatic experience in her life, and although I wasn't a direct victim, it was also very distressing for me. I can't begin to imagine what she has been through, and I don't try to compare my own experience to hers at all. I have experienced intense periods of depression because I felt powerless to protect her, and knowing that someone else was causing her harm was almost unbearable. Right after the incident, she didn't want to see me. It was painful, but I understood. Her parents picked her up from the hospital and I did not see or hear from her for a week, which I sort of get, but I think I could have gotten a text or something just saying she was okay. I received a call from her sister after a week, informing me that she was staying with her parents and would call me in a couple of days. However, she never followed through with the call. Instead, I once again got a text from her sister saying she would like me to come over for a few minutes so we could talk. I stand up and walk over to the door. Her mother greets me and then calmly and coldly tells me how I should behave and what I should say. She also tells me not to try to hug her or make any physical contact. Okay, again, I get it. I'm pretty sure they've been prepped by therapists or counselors on what to say and do around her, so I just go along with it. As I enter the room, I see her sitting on a chair with her dad standing next to her and her sister on the couch. As I walk into the room, the sister starts talking and telling me that my GF wants me to know that she is okay but she has been traumatized and appreciates my understanding in her recovery. She never said one single word to me and barely looked at me. Right after the event, I realized that the conversation I had was awkward. I understand that it had to happen, but it was just so uncomfortable. I leave, go home, and attempt to focus on how I can help her. I start Googling how to deal with a rape survivor and what I can expect. She begins attending therapy twice a week at first, but after 2 months, she reduces it to once a week. In the meantime, she finally makes contact with me and asks to meet at a coffee shop. When I arrived, she was already there and waiting. By then, she was heavily medicated, and it felt like I was dealing with someone who was barely responsive. She seemed very calm and didn't show much emotion when she spoke. She wanted to meet up that day to let me know that she couldn't go out with me for a while because she was dealing with some personal issues. I told her that I understood. This was almost a month after the attack and this was our first conversation ourselves, so I was already living under this assumption. I reassured her that I would support her and be available for whatever she needed, whether it was space, a listening ear, or anything else. I was about to express my love for her when she interrupted me. She told me that right now she didn't want to hear that and that I had to respect her wishes. I couldn't believe it. Despite feeling a little hurt and surprised, I agreed to whatever she wanted. The very next day, she started texting me again. These little things are nothing important, but I think it is a big step in getting back to where we were. This goes on for another month and a half. I finally asked her if we could go out for dinner after a month and a half. She didn't reply for 2 days and then said that she had to wait to talk to her therapist. Finally, she agrees to this but sets the date for another month away. Just to give you a sense of the timeline, this is almost 4 months after the attack. Up to this point, I've only had one in-person conversation with her and one truly bizarre conversation with her and her family. I haven't been getting any updates about her progress from anyone. I know I'm not officially family and I don't have any special rights, but it would have been nice to at least receive a text or a call from someone letting me know how she's doing in therapy, whether it's going well or not. We go out to eat at a small bistro that we ate at all of the time. I met her there and I was waiting for her to show up. After sitting for a half-hour waiting, I texted to see what was up. Someone just sent me a message saying that they're on their way. When they arrived and sat down, I asked them how they were doing, and they got upset and told me not to ask personal questions. I just got a text on my way. She finally arrives and sits down. I asked her how she had been and she snapped at me and told me to not ask her personal questions. We ate, and after dinner, I wanted to just sit and talk because I missed the person I had talked to almost every day for the previous 3 years. But when she was done eating, she said that she was ready to go home. I wanted to chat with her for a bit, but she seemed anxious, so I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. So I said that I loved her and missed her. She just walked away. She goes back to texting me the next day like nothing had been wrong. We've been meeting up for lunch once a week and it's been amazing to see how much more at ease she's becoming with going out. We're having these great conversations and she's open about her new job, it's so exciting. This goes on for another 4 months. I'm happy to see her and all, but honestly, I'm very lonely and we have not even so much as held hands. Then one day she doesn't show up for lunch. I sent a message to check if she was doing okay, but I didn't get a response. So, I called her parents to ask if they knew where she was and if she was doing alright. I got the runaround from them and by this time I was starting to get upset because I didn't want to know where she was or anything. Hey, I was just checking in to see how she's doing. Her mom confirmed that she's okay, but she might be out of touch for a while. Well, that makes me start to think she has had a relapse and is in the hospital. But what can I do? All I do is go home and try to distract myself from it. 2 weeks go by, and I hear nothing from anyone. I'm trying my best to be reasonable here, but I call her sister and ask if she is still alive or what. She knew I was getting frustrated, so she apologized but then mentioned that her sister had explicitly instructed them not to allow me to speak with her. It was at this moment that I couldn't hold back my emotions and broke down. I don't know what I've done wrong here. I have not pushed her. I have not tried to get her to be with me in any way other than to just talk to me, and even then I have had very generic conversations to not upset her. I then got a text from her asking if I would meet with her at an address I wasn't familiar with, but once I looked it up I determined this was a therapist's office. I was instructed to arrive at 4, so I had to leave work early. When I checked in at the front desk, the therapist asked to speak with me privately for a few minutes. She comes in and I now know where the parents were getting this from, because after formally greeting me she then started to provide me with a list of do's and don'ts. She then informed me that my girlfriend wanted to have a conversation with me and had something important to say. I entered the room and she was seated in one chair, while I was directed to sit in the other. She had a box of tissues and had been crying. The therapist told me that I was there because my girlfriend had something important to tell me and she wanted the safety of the therapist's office to feel secure. Then she told me that the reason she didn't meet me for lunch that day was because she was with another guy from her new job, and they had been intimate with each other. She might as well have taken a gun out and shot me. It couldn't have hurt any more. I just dropped my head and began to cry. The therapist then chimed in with some reasoning, explaining that reclaiming her sexuality after the attack wasn't the typical type of cheating. My GF then proceeds to tell me that she does not want to lose me and that she is just very fucked up in the head and that it was a one-time thing and blah blah blah. I felt very trapped at that moment. I felt like I was being cornered, and the longer I stayed, the angrier I became. I finally just said to her, "You haven't so much as held my hand in the past half year yet you can go fuck some guy you met at work," while I sit like a jackass waiting for my junior high like date. This naturally sent her into a fit of hysterics, and the therapist requested that I step out. I said sorry and told her to reach out if she wanted to work things out. Later that day, I received a text from her. Now she's being very talkative, saying that breaking up was the biggest mistake she's ever made and asking me to talk to her. I tell her that I don't know if I can go on with this but agree to meet her. I flat out tell her right up front when I see her that for me to even consider going forward with this she has to cut this other guy off, period. I'm sorry, but I can't even think about it if she's going to see this guy every single day because they work together. She decided to find another job, and after talking with my sister, who I have told everything, she said that while it is not common, some women do attempt to have sex after being attacked so that they feel like they have power again. I can't understand why she chose to do this with someone else instead of me. It feels like I'm being punished for something I didn't even do. After she changed jobs, we resumed our lunches, but I brought up my feelings about just meeting for lunch without doing anything else twice. Finally, she agreed to come over to watch TV with me. That has been it up until tonight. Last night, she came over, and we decided to watch 2 movies while enjoying some pizza. It was during the second movie that I tried to lean in for a kiss. Nothing more, just a fucking kiss. She steps back as if I'm holding a cross and she's a vampire, and then she tells me she's not ready for that yet. Okay, not my finest moment here, I admit, but I tell her that it's been a fucking year and a month and I have not tried one goddamn thing with her or forced her into anything, and yet she willingly fucked some other guy months ago, but here I am still waiting to hold hands. She started crying, but this time I didn't rush to apologize. I apologized for my tone and assured her that I would never force her to do anything against her will. However, I expressed my feelings of being cheated on and my frustration despite my efforts to be a supportive partner. I told her that I needed some time to think and asked her not to contact me until I made a decision. I want to be fair to her, but it's been a year, and we're no closer to a resolution than we were 6 months ago. I have no idea how much longer this will continue. Now here is the part where if you didn't think I was an asshole before, you will now. I am just tired of not having sex. Listen, I do not want to rush into anything right after what happened, and even waiting for months makes total sense. But it's been over a year now, and we're not even holding hands. Honestly, knowing that she's been with someone else since then is tearing me apart. So I told her that I was going to think things through and promised to talk with her next week sometime. But as it stands tonight, I think I'm done. I love her. I despise the person who has caused such hardship for both of us. I understand that it's not her fault, but I can't shake this constant feeling of misery. If I choose to remain, I'll end up feeling bitter, and even if she visits tomorrow and we have intimate relations, it will seem like either sympathy sex or desperate sex. But I know ending this will be punishing her for something that isn't her fault either. Advice. My God, this is way too long. TLDRGF was raped over a year ago. I've been giving her space and letting her handle things in her way. Since the attack, we haven't been intimate. She on the other hand has been with another guy since. I think I'm done but looking for advice. Editor's note. Many people think Poster is right to want to leave and is not impressed. They say he's been treated unfairly, has been very patient with GF, and no one has recognized that he was also a victim. They also say GF cheated. There is also universal criticism of the therapist and the way she is handling GF's recovery. Then there were a few SAW survivors who commented, most along the lines of saying that GF is handling this completely inappropriately. First update. I want to emphasize that when I wrote my initial post, I was clearly in a very difficult situation. The incident from that night was still very fresh in my mind, and the pain I experienced at that moment was overwhelming. I typed it out, which was cathartic to me, and then decided to crawl into a bottle of Jim Beam. Yesterday, I had to call in sick to work because I was dealing with the worst hangover ever. I spent the day alternating between throwing up and lying down with an ice pack on my head. When I finally went on Reddit last night, I was completely blown away by what I found. It was an overwhelming experience. I could not believe the number of messages I had in my inbox. I lost count, to be honest with you, but it was way over 1K. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. So many people opened up to me about their own experiences either being the victim or being the SO of a victim. Each of your stories touched me more than I could say. One story, in particular, touched me, and I have to admit that I sat at my keyboard and cried for a good 20 minutes while reading it. The similarity to my own experience was uncanny, almost as if I was reliving it. Yet, this account came from an older man who faced nearly identical challenges and had to make the same tough decisions. Thank you, sir. I won't share any details since that was sent to me in confidence, but you truly touched me. Given all of that, I find myself here today. Even though everyone told me that I wasn't being rude and that I wasn't at fault, it still doesn't sit well with me. I feel like an absolute failure and that if I had just been more assertive early on in the process we could have changed things. I don't think I've emphasized enough how deeply I loved and continue to love her. Ending this relationship feels as though I'm being asked to part with a piece of myself, like losing an arm. I haven't had any solid food since Sunday night. I know I need to stop drinking, but right now feeling numb is better than facing what I need to do. Before I go over my intentions, I do want to clear up a couple of things. As I said, I wrote that while I was still very upset and hurt, so I think I was probably either not clear enough or maybe painted a couple of people in a bad light. First, to her parents. I've been acquainted with her parents since just 3 weeks into our relationship. They have never been anything but kind to me, and we have eaten at their house twice a month since we have been together. My family always celebrates Christmas on Christmas Eve, so I've spent 3 of the last 4 Christmases at my partner's house with them. I don't hold any grudges or blame them for this. Their child was brutalized and traumatized, so they circled the wagon around her. Although I don't have children of my own, I completely understand that she was their main concern. Her father has been deeply affected by this, and it's been heartbreaking to see this strong man so devastated. Her sister has honestly been my lifeline. She has talked with me and has always tried to be as open as she can with me. Yes, they were aware of the cheating, which is why I encountered a lot of evasion and excuses. No, they did not support her decision to do this, however they did not want to be involved other than be there for her. The second possibility is that her therapist might be ineffective, but I cannot assess that. Yet, upon reviewing what I wrote, I believe I may have portrayed it more negatively than it was. She did not try and excuse what she did, nor did she try and justify it like I implied. After a few seconds of awkward silence that was only interrupted by my crying, she said that some women do that. Also, I did reread where some people thought it was the therapist who recommended she do this, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. My G.F. told her in therapy what she had done, and she is the one who convinced my G.F. to tell me. They decided to do it there so she would feel secure. I just wanted to clarify those 2 points because I didn't handle either of them well. My GF was my best friend and has always been there for me. I used to confide in her about everything. I have some colleagues at work who I get along with, but I'm living far away from my hometown, and all my friends there are either married or focused on their careers. So, I don't have a strong support system here. My sister has been there for me to a point, but there is a real complication to that even. My GF and my sister are best friends. It's how I met my GF. So, even though my sister cares about me and wants the best for me, she's also very understanding of her friend's feelings and doesn't want anything to happen that would hurt either of us. She doesn't condone the cheating, but she's been trying to downplay it. She does not know though that we have not been together sexually since the rape. Honestly, that is none of her business, and I think she would be disgusted with me if I let her think that this even had anything to do with it. My GF has been blowing up my phone with texts since Sunday night. She is saying everything that I have wanted her to say since about a month after the rape. I've received more "I love yous" in the last day than I have in the whole past year. I've only replied twice, so she knows I'm seeing them. I'm struggling with the next part of this. I realized last night, or early this morning, that for my mental health, I can't continue with this. Trust me, I feel like a failure and it's weighing me down. So here is my plan. I know it is chicken shit on my part, but I have typed a letter and I am going to send it to her therapist for my GF to read in her office. That way there is immediate support for her. I don't want her to be any more abandoned than what I am going to be doing. That is heartbreaking to type, by the way. When she goes to her appointment on Friday morning, I'll send emails to her parents and a text to her sister to let them know what's going on. This way, they can be there for her when she's done. I sent her. The only change is that I'm not using her or her therapist's real names here. Please read it and let me know if I am out of line or if I am too cruel or if this will trigger any type of mental trauma related to her rape. I have zero intention of inflicting any more pain than what is normal with a breakup. Hey Sarah, I wanted to tell you something important. I've been thinking a lot about us, and I can't contain my excitement. Since the day we met, you've brought so much joy into my life. The first 3 years of our relationship were incredible, and I've cherished every moment. You were my everything, and I know that we had both talked about marriage a lot, and I know and believe with all of my heart that we were going to be married. It would have brought me immense joy and pride to be known as your husband. I struggle to express this, but for the sake of my mental well-being, I need to release you. Believe me when I say that decision did not come easily to me, nor can I say that it is not heartbreaking on my end. I have always and still love you, but I can't be with you anymore. You need to prioritize your healing and be able to fully focus on yourself. Having to concern yourself with my feelings is only hindering your progress. I will always hate the bastard who did this to you. He has destroyed countless lives, so a life sentence seems far more fitting than the punishment he received. Unfortunately, I don't have the authority to make that decision. I know holding on to hate is not healthy, but he has ruined my life as well as yours. I know you are going to hate me for this. I don't blame you at all. I know that you feel abandoned, but please understand I have done everything in my power to be there for you. I wanted to be more involved in your healing, but for whatever reason I was somewhat excluded from being a significant part of your inner circle. I've been feeling isolated and disconnected from you and your family. I always wanted the best for you and wished to support you whenever I could. I won't lie, you seeking comfort in the arms of another while still to this day denying me any affection has weighed very heavily on me. I forgave you then, and I forgive you now, but forgiveness doesn't erase the soul-crushing pain that accompanies it. I understand to a point why you might have done it. I strongly disagree with it and I doubt I ever will, but I can understand the reasoning behind it. However, that has nothing to do with the fact that we are 1 year and a month past your incident and you still treat me as though I did something wrong or will do something wrong to you. I understood that you weren't ready for a kiss the other night, and I know you still need time to heal. I can't wait indefinitely, though, which is where we are still. I know it is very selfish of me, but I need affection. I need both mental and physical intimacy. Our conversations have been both generic and bland for the past year. Believe me, I can understand why. You want me to remember the text, but we used to spend hours talking about our future and what we wanted. Is that correct? Now at best, we talk about what movies we want to watch. What I am doing is in no way because of what happened to you. That event was transformative and had a profound impact on your life. I have never once doubted you because of it. This is all about your recovery and how you have to heal. For whatever reason, reasons you may not even know yourself, you have distanced yourself from me completely. I've tried wholeheartedly to reconnect with you, but it's very clear that I am no closer to you now than I was right after the incident. Just to be very clear, so you don't think this is about anything else. There is no one else. I am not seeing anyone. I am completely focused on my goals and passionate about what I do. Love is not on my radar at the moment, as I am fully devoted to my dreams and aspirations. I am not now, nor have I ever cheated on you. I hope with all of my heart for you to be fully healed soon. I want you to be happy. I hope that one day you'll be able to look back on our time together with warmth and find it in your heart to forgive me. I'll always have love for you. This hurts me more than you can imagine. Love, Chad. Thank you again to everybody. I know I type a boatload, but it just feels good to get this out. I need to send this to her therapist by tomorrow. The real question is, do I have the strength to send it? TLDR, I need some advice about a letter I wrote to someone. Also, I've learned a few things recently. The first thing is that I had no idea how many English teachers, lit majors, and overall editors were Redditors. Lol, I received a lot of comments pointing out my bad spelling and grammar. It made me feel self-conscious. In all seriousness, thank you to those of you who took the time to edit that for format, grammar, and spelling. I'm truly grateful to those who took the time to offer me written feedback and explanations about my mistakes. Another thing I've realized is that this community is genuinely filled with warmth and compassion, for the most part. I have been given numbers to call, emails to read, and lists of things to read to help me on my journey. I appreciate all the touching stories I've been told. Can you believe I've read every single one, even though there were around 2,500 messages last time I checked? Some people have offered to buy me drinks and hang out, and I even got an offer for a hand massage to help me relax, which was both flattering and amusing at the same time. However, the main thing that I have learned recently is to never sign your real name to an open public letter if you don't want it to somehow get back to the people in your life. You make it hard to deny it was you when every detail is the same and you use your name. Many people wanted an update on how things went. Simply put, it didn't. I wrote the initial letter for the review, and then with the assistance of several Redditors, I revised the letter, improving its format. I also removed the part where I mentioned that the rapist ruined her, as I acknowledged that it was an inappropriate thing to say. I almost edited him out altogether other than saying I wish he had gotten a longer sentence. However, I chose to keep the part about being her husband. Despite the suggestions to remove it, I strongly believed it was important to express that. I can't explain why. Of course, my intention originally was to mail it to her therapist's office with instructions for what to say. But I knew there was no way she would receive it on time, so I decided to bring it to her. And try to talk to her in person. Notice how that was all in the past tense as in what I was going to do. Well, I never got the chance. Wednesday night, late night, I have a knock on my door. Lo and behold, it is her sister and my sister together. Her sister held papers while my sister entered, followed by her sister. Something is up, so I ask what's wrong, and her sister hands me a printout of my posts and the replies to my previous 2 threads, and she simply asks, "Is this you?" At first, I tried to deny it. I was having trouble recalling everything I had written, especially the first post. As a result, I was trying to be cautious and avoid any issues in case I had said something I shouldn't have. But my sister just straight up got in my face and told me to stop fucking lying. By then I was caught. I knew and she knew it. I just dropped a bombshell. It sparked a marathon conversation that stretched into the wee hours of the morning. Her sister was visibly upset, shedding tears as she grappled with the news. It was clear that her love for her sister drove her emotional response, and she couldn't fathom how I could contemplate such a decision. Much to my surprise though, my sister stood up for me here and actually kind of ripped her sister a new asshole. She told me that I had exceeded what most people do and that Sarah should not still be holding back affection from me a year later. She didn't know that we still weren't as physically close as we used to be. Like I said, I never told her. Once my sister got done talking, Susan said that in reality, she knew that she was right. She pleaded with me not to send my letter. She said that I had promised to give Sarah a week. She then gave a very impassioned speech about how much she can tell I still love her and how much she knows she still loves me. My sister completely agreed that my heart was filled with so much love that we just couldn't go ahead with it right away. She said it made sense at the time, asking, "What's another week compared to what you've been through?" Long story short, I agreed not to deliver the letter. Whether it was guilt, regret, or love I can't say, but I agreed to it. This was followed by the most incredible and embarrassing moment of my life. Susan hugged me tightly and cried as she was about to leave. It's been a very long time since I've had any type of close contact, and let's just say it's not a lot of fun being called a disgusting pig by your sister. All I could do was apologize profusely and express my deep embarrassment. Luckily, Susan seemed to be understanding about the situation. She wanted to ensure that I would speak with Sarah the following day. Despite feeling like a zombie due to lack of sleep, I pushed myself to go to work. I have lots of PTO time available to me, but I didn't want to burn it all up over this in case I needed time later. I got home from work and I intended to go straight to bed after eating dinner and maybe watching some TV. I was in the middle of eating my dinner when someone started knocking on my door again. This time, it was Susan and Sarah. This time Sarah is holding the printout. You can tell they both have been crying, and Susan asked if they could come in. I nodded my head in agreement because I was feeling a bit nervous, regardless of what she may or may not have done. Seeing Sarah emotional always upsets me, and she physically looked horrible. I mean as bad as she did after the rape. As they settled onto the couch, Sarah was already in tears, her emotions pouring out. We all just sat there for what felt like a very long time, looking at each other. I didn't want to be the first one to speak. I didn't know what to say or do, so I just sat there. Eventually, I broke through and asked Sarah if she wanted some water or something to drink. She said yes, so I got up and went to the kitchen to fetch her a glass of ice water. When I turned around, she was right behind me, asking if I was going to leave her. I couldn't answer. I gazed into her eyes and felt a sense of brokenness and shame wash over me. As we went to sit down, she chose to sit next to me this time. She started to read my first post to me but could not make it through it. Susan jumps in at this point and says they had spent the day talking and they had gone over the post and most of the replies, and said that Sarah was very sorry for how she treated me. She mentioned that they've had a conversation with their parents, and everyone is in agreement that the way I was treated wasn't fair. Seeing it in writing struck a nerve with all of them because they could see how hurt I was in that, even though I could have blamed all of them, that I didn't. As Sarah nodded vigorously, she found her voice and expressed regret, acknowledging that she hadn't genuinely considered my feelings. She admitted that her actions had been hurtful and recognized my unwavering compassion and love for her. She begged me for another chance. She said that sometimes in life you need a kick in the ass to get moving, and she said my wanting to break up with her was her wake-up call. I won't allow her to take me for granted, she said firmly. Susan acknowledged her infidelity and admitted that she had a year's worth of apologizing to do. She calmly explained that they had a lengthy conversation in the afternoon, but she didn't even touch me. Sarah then replied that she had no real excuses. She knows that what she did was horrible and that she had no right to ask me for forgiveness but was going to anyway. She also mentioned making it a top priority in her life to communicate with her therapist and overcome any physical limitations she may have with me. This went on for a long time, by the way. I could give you a lot more of what was said, but this is already a wall of text as it is. While she was talking to me, she was holding my hand. She reached out and took it. Now I realize that she read my posts, and I made a big deal about that in my posts, but whether she did it because she read it or just did it on her own, I won't deny that it felt really good. They decided to spend the whole night there. No, before you get any crazy porn movie ideas, nothing happened between any of us. Susan slept on the futon and Sarah on the couch, and I went to my bed. I phoned my workplace on a Thursday morning before going to sleep because I realized I wouldn't be able to function well with so little sleep. I get awoken around 10 by Sarah sitting next to me in the bed, rubbing her hands on my arm to wake me up. She told me they were about to leave because she had rescheduled her therapy session to 11. She didn't want to go without telling me how much she loved me and assuring me that she would be back right after the session. Then she leaned over and kissed me. It wasn't a long passionate kiss, it was just kind of a quick kiss, but right on the lips. This was a mistake, I'm sure, because that broke my resolve right there. Until then, I believed that it was all just talk. It wasn't until I threatened to leave that she finally started paying attention to me. At 1 p.m., I couldn't shake off the feeling of the rape survivor's words. If her response hinged on the possibility of me leaving, then it wasn't solely because of her emotional trauma. If it were purely due to that, my departure wouldn't have made a difference. But between my sister, her sister, and her, every wall that I was building to protect myself was crumbling. And that kiss pretty much was the wrecking ball that tore them all down. I went back to sleep, and around 1, she showed back up at my place with lunch. Susan wasn't with her, so it was just going to be the two of us. We ended up spending the afternoon together. We ended up spending the weekend together. Yes, you can infer from that what occurred between us. I'll just say that I was probably more scared about it than she was. I was worried about triggering anything or saying or doing anything that would upset her. She, on the other hand, was very loving and emotional about it. She wept for a significant amount of time afterward, which made me anxious, but she explained that it was a mix of happiness and sorrow. She mentioned that she had forgotten the sensation of love, and it simply overpowered her. We spent hours laying there. She had a recommendation from her therapist for a couples counselor who we are going to start seeing next week. I understand that this may not be what many people were hoping to hear, and all I can do is apologize for letting you down. I know I might receive hurtful comments from some individuals, but ultimately, I need to prioritize my happiness and well-being. For the first time in over a year, I have been happy for 4 days. I know that this isn't the end, that we are still going to have hurdles to overcome. I honestly believe that this was a wake-up call for her. If not, why endure all the emotional drama and turmoil? Wouldn't she just move on? The bottom line is that I love her. I have always loved her, and all I wanted was for her to show me she loved me as well. This past weekend was a really bonding experience for me and me as well. I think we can build something new together. Reddit, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the overwhelming love and support I've received from all of you. I truly feel like the luckiest person in the world. TLDR, got caught with my Reddit postings. My sister and her sister convinced me to not go through with the letter. Her sister and she came over, and we had a heart-to-heart conversation where she expressed her thoughts and allowed me to do the same. We enjoyed 3 amazing days together, and it felt like paradise. I'm thrilled to say that we're officially becoming a couple.